Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here at the CollegeBound Foundation. My name is Ayanna Jones. I am the Director of Training here at the Foundation. I've been working here at CollegeBound for about 8 years, almost 9 years in September. And I was a college access specialist for most of those years, about 7 or 8 of those years. And now I work at CollegeBound headquarters. Prior to that, I worked in the financial aid department at Stevenson University. And I am joined today by MJ Malandruco. We are presenting about the ACT today, about how to utilize the ACT beyond the waiver. What other benefits actually come with actually attaining an ACT fee waiver? So MJ Malandruco is someone we've known for a couple of years now, is definitely a friend of CollegeBound, and she is the account executive and state lead for the state of Maryland for the ACT. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself, and then we'll just go ahead and move forward from there. We're going to hold off on questions until the end of the presentation, but please do, if you have a question you think you may forget, put it in the chat. If you have something that you have a burning question about or want explained further, MJ definitely is able to take a pause and kind of go there. I want this to be an interactive conversation so we can all support one another. So MJ, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jones. I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. I've been learning so much about the foundation and the work that they do with all of you, and it's just an exciting and wonderful program. And so I'm happy to come and give you some more information about some of the opportunities that you may not be familiar with ACT, and then how you might be able to take advantage of those in a kind of a little bit of a structured program. So this is me. MJ, my name is Mary Jane instead of MJ, but everywhere I've gone through my whole career and school, it's always been shortened, whether I liked it or not, to MJ. So eventually I just kind of went with it, especially when I married my husband with a name like Melindrucco. It was just too much name. So that's me. As Ms. Jones said, I am an account executive for ACT, and I'm also the state lead. I work with Maryland, I work with DC, Delaware, New Jersey, and half of Pennsylvania. So from Harrisburg East, I work with Pennsylvania. And essentially my job is really to work with foundations and schools and state organizations to really spread the word about ACT, what we do, and how we can help people achieve education and workplace success. That's our mission. It's been our mission for the past 60 years. We've been ACT for 60 years now, all going on 61. And so our mission, again, is to help students achieve college success and workplace success. This is my contact information. We will be sending, this is being recorded, of course, and we will be sending out this deck after the presentation so that you have all of the slides. But this is the contact information for me. Honestly, I'm a traveling and busy girl at certain times of the year, so best way to reach me is usually by email, and I respond fairly quickly. So let's get started. A little bit about an agenda. I'd like to just give you a brief overview of ACT. And what we're going to focus mostly on today is the ACT itself, and also the pre-ACT, which you may or may not be familiar with. And then I'm going to talk about this program that I put together a couple of years ago called the 12-Week Challenge. And actually, the 12-Week Challenge was sort of born out of me doing these presentations. So I would come to schools and districts and talk about ACT and all of the wonderful things that we offer. And then everyone would be happy and nodding their head and this is so great. And then life happens and work happens and nothing happens, right? So I developed this program to kind of help you guys put something in place that will allow you to take advantage of everything that I'm talking about today in a structured way. So you don't have to figure out, what to do next. And then certainly we will open it up, as Ms. Jones said, to questions and answers at the end. Sound good? Okay. So I always like to start with how we begin at ACT. And so every couple of years, we conduct what we call the ACT National Curriculum Survey. So the last survey was conducted in 2020. And essentially, we go out and collect data. We go to colleges and universities all across the country and find out what it is that students need to know to be successful when they come through those doors. So we take all of that information back. We talk to high schools and we find out, what's going on in their curriculum. Is it matching up? And so that's how we start the whole ACT process every couple of years. It sort of gets refreshed to make sure that the questions we're asking on the assessments are what kids are learning in school, and more importantly, what they need when they get to college and university. We also use this information to inform policymakers at the federal level and the state level. And it really helps us to start guiding our assessments. So from there, we create our ACT standards. On the left, you can see we have a list of standards for all 4 subjects and writing. So English, math, reading, science, and writing. And it's the essential skills that students need to be prepared for college and career. So the standards are created and refreshed again every time we do a national curriculum survey. From the curriculum survey, we then develop the ACT benchmarks. So the ACT benchmarks you probably are familiar with, but these are scores that are associated with post-secondary success. So for example, if your student reaches an ACT score of 18 in English, essentially that means that they're ready for that first year college credit bearing course of English Comp. If they receive a math score of 22, they're ready for college algebra. So if you zoom down to the bottom, you see we also offer a STEM score. And you'll see that the STEM score is higher. It's actually a 26. And the reason why that score is so much higher is because students who are entering into a STEM career or a STEM major in college, their first year of math is not going to be college algebra, right? It's likely to be calculus. Their first science course is probably not biology, but probably it's going to be physics. So that is why the STEM score is higher for students who are kind of going into that major, so that they know they are ready to perform in those classes. So the benchmarks essentially mean that if a student reaches a benchmark in any of those subjects, they have a 50% chance of receiving a B or better in that corresponding college course. They have a 75% chance of a C or better as well. So they're ready. They will score a C or more on those college courses if they reach the ACT benchmark. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All righty. So I always like to start with the math question as we start to get into the ACT. So I'm not trying to torture you. Well, I am, maybe a little bit, because students are obviously tortured when they have to start preparing for their ACT or SAT. So we'll start with an easy one, and let's see how we do. Math question. Okay. So here's the ACT math question. I'll give you a couple seconds to read and figure that one out. This is an easy one, by the way.
MJ, we can't see the question.
Oh, you can? Right here? I'm sorry. I'm not sure why that is.
Let me see if I can try that for you.
Yeah,
Oh, we see it now.
okay.
Does everyone see the question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Okay, so here we go. Which of the following can be divided by 3 with no remainder? So the answer is 555. I will get out of there. So 555 is the answer. And I like to share the question. I'd like to spend a minute or two. I always get the question from everyone, you know, what are the major difference between the SAT and the ACT? And one of the things I always like to point out is math. So with the ACT, because we test on 4 subjects, the ACT math score is 25% of the composite score. The SAT math score is 50% of the composite score. So when you're thinking about, you know, sometimes people are making that choice, well, should I have my students take the ACT or the SAT? You know, you might want to think about math strength and how much, you know, emphasis you'd like to put on math. The other thing is with math, students are allowed to use a calculator for the entire math section on the ACT. And as you know, on the SAT, there's only certain section that they could use their calculator for. Now, there are changes coming with the SAT as they go digital, and I'm sure that will change. But for now, that's how that goes. So, you know, you could answer the question earlier quickly with your calculator, right? So timing is everything in ACT math. So I just like to kind of go through a little bit of those changes. All right, now. Okay, so that takes us to the ACT itself. So just a couple of basics. The ACT is accepted at all colleges and universities. Now, we all know that all of that is sort of changing with schools that are test optional, schools that are test blind, but any school that wants to see a score or accepts a score, any college and university accepts the ACT. As I said, we have 4 subjects: English, math, reading, science, and optional writing. We're finding there are not a lot of schools at this point that still require a writing score. So kind of keep that in mind when you're, you know, putting out students, when you're signing up students for tests. It's probably not that necessary at this point. And it's typically taken by juniors and seniors, although we do have a lot of sophomores that want to get an early start and take it as well. So as I said, timing is everything with the ACT. So for example, English, students have 45 minutes to answer 75 questions. So they're zipping through all of this information. Math, they have 60 minutes to answer 60 questions. So keep that in mind as well. And the math questions do get more difficult from beginning to end of the math test. I will say that. Calculators are allowed through the whole test. Reading, they have 35 minutes to answer 40 questions, and science, they have 35 minutes to answer 40 questions. And I'll point out the science, I get that question a lot. It's really about the interpretation of data, you know, analysis, evaluation, and kind of problem solving and reasoning. That is mostly what the content of the science test is. And then of course we have the optional writing test, which students have 40 minutes to answer the prompt with an essay. So our national testing dates, we have 7 throughout the year. There's one coming up in June. I think it's next Saturday. We offer the test at test centers across the United States. Our national testing is currently paper only. So it's still paper and pencil, although we do have an online version. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So the pricing is for this year was $60 per student for the ACT without writing and $85 per student with writing. And the increase in price is really because we have 3 different people reading the essays and scoring them. So that's why the increase in price is there. So fee waivers. So I know a lot of your students will be able to qualify for fee waivers. So of course those charges are not important. So they are available to qualifying organizations. So not necessarily just a school. We have foundations and all kinds of different people, organizations that apply for fee waivers. We've increased the fee waivers to 4. So students now have 4 opportunities to take the ACT with a fee waiver. We also have free test prep, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. We'll get into that a little bit later. But we have a test program in partnership with Kaplan, and it's considered our premium test prep program. And so when students register for the ACT with a fee waiver, they will also have the opportunity to take advantage of the Kaplan Prep program, right? They can sign up for it right there and then when they register for the test. It's free. And students can, every time they register for a test, they can get 6 months of access to the Kaplan program. These are not purchased by students, schools, or districts. So the Kaplan program is purchased on an individual basis. And they're different than vouchers. So a voucher is, a district will pay for their students to take an ACT or an SAT. So they purchase vouchers at a discount in advance rather than just having students pay for the test as they register. So again, the fee waivers, all of the different things they can register for any national test center that they'd like. But I want to point out on the right, you see some statistics about fee waivers. And more than 5 registered students that registered for the ACT with a fee waiver, 5 out of 10 never actually came and took the test. So over a quarter of these students are registering for the ACT with a fee waiver and they don't show up. There are lots and lots of reasons why they don't show up. And 75% of those reasons include, lack of transportation to the testing center, or they're working on a Saturday and they can't, afford to take that morning off to take the ACT. There's emergencies. There's, they show up for the test and they don't have their ticket or they forgot their identification. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why those fee waivers go and not really be used for the test. And so I like to point out that we do have an ACT school day testing program. So as I said, 75% of the reasons students give for not showing up for the ACT with a fee waiver have to do with that Saturday, right? Whether it's work, whether it's transportation, whatever it is. So if you want, you can choose to offer the ACT on a school day. So it's a weekday administration. We have 1 in the fall and we have 3 in the spring. And in the spring, we actually have an online ACT. So I know it seems like College Board is going completely online in 2024, I believe, but we're currently already doing ACT online training or online testing. So if you're interested in that, I can certainly provide more information. So with the option is, again, either Saturday testing or school day testing. Now, I want to point out here that if you choose to do the school day testing, fee waivers are not allowed to be used for school day testing. So you would have to purchase vouchers for those students and pay for that test. I just wanted to point that out. And now we can take a look at super scoring. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with super scoring or not, so I'll just kind of give a little explanation of what it is. So students can take the ACT multiple times, and if you look at the chart I'm showing, there's the first column is test date. So this particular student took the ACT in April, again in June, and then again in September. So in April, the student scored a 23 in reading, and that was their highest score of reading of all 3 attempts at the ACT. In June, the student scored a 22 on the English, and that was their highest score for all 3 attempts in English. Math was a 23 in September, and science was a 22 in June. So those scores are then combined to give a super score. So in this case, the super score is a 23. So a student can take the ACT up to 4 times, as I said, with their fee waiver, and then they'll be able to report their highest score in each subject as a super score. Make sense? Okay, good. So that's fairly new for us, and we're very happy that we're able to offer that. I will say that our statistics really show that the time between the first and second, so the second time a student takes the ACT, that seems to be the highest increase in score. The third and the fourth time, it sort of flattens out a little bit. So I think it's important to encourage students to take it at least twice, because they will likely show a score increase. And then of course, if there's some prep involved in between tests, you know, those scores will go up even higher. But I think a lot of it has to do with the familiarity of the test itself, the timing. So once students get one under their belt, you know, they seem to perform better on the second test, and that goes for the ACT as well as the SAT. So that is super scoring. And now let's get into a little bit of what I wanted to really talk about today, which is our connected assessments. So we have the pre-ACT 8-9. The pre-ACT 8-9 is designed for 8th and 9th graders. So that transition from 8th grade to high school, get an idea of where your students are in 9th grade in terms of college readiness. So it's never too early to start looking at that. So when students enter high school, you know, you can have some data under your belt, knowing where they are when they entered high school. And then the pre-ACT itself usually comes in grade 10. So this is actually the practice for the ACT. Students will get a predicted ACT score and ideas for progress when they take the pre-ACT. We also have a lot of schools that are offering the pre-ACT in junior year, in the beginning of junior year, you know, knowing that a lot of kids take their first assessment in the spring of junior year. So end of sophomore year or beginning of junior year is most common for the pre-ACT. And then of course the ACT usually comes in 11th grade. Oftentimes we have students take it in the very beginning of senior year just to kind of get that other score. So the pre-ACT suite, again, we have the pre-ACT 8-9 and we have the pre-ACT. The 8-9 predicts performance on the pre-ACT, and the pre-ACT predicts performance on the ACT. So you're starting to build some data, right? So you can review year over year and see where your students are in terms of college readiness. The pre-ACTs are both multiple choice, paper, pencil. They're shorter in length than the ACT. So the ACT is 3 hours and 5 minutes. The pre-ACT is about 2 hours, maybe 2 hours and 10 minutes. The beauty of the pre-ACT is that you can offer it whenever you want during the school year. It's not considered a high stakes test. It's not, so, there's a lot of flexibility there. If you'd like, you can offer the pre-ACT over a series of a couple of days. So again, it's completely flexible, knowing that it's hard for many schools to give up any instructional time for yet another assessment, another test. You can fit it in where you see some open windows. And I will share with you some of the reports that you will receive when offering the pre-ACT. So this is the delivery and format. Paper, multiple choice, 4 subjects. You'll see the length. We're starting to get students ready timing wise, how fast they have to be to get through all of these questions. So it helps students with timing, structure, and the subject areas. This is a look at the student report that students will receive when they take the pre-ACT. If you're familiar with the ACT, you'll see it looks pretty much exactly alike the ACT report. So if you look over to the left, you can see the composite score. And then we look at each subject. So you can see in math, the student scored a 19, which is in the benchmark range, but not quite at the benchmark. So we'll be able to see all of this information. If you look over to the right, the students will be able to keep their pre-ACT booklets. So when their reports come back, they'll be able to compare their answer with the correct answer, another opportunity for some prep. In addition to the student report, we do offer a whole host of educator reports. I know it's a little hard to see, but we offer a frequency distribution report, the item response summary report. So if you look at the item response summary report, you'll see, wow, 90% of students got this particular question wrong. I wonder why that is. I wonder if we need to look at our curriculum or maybe take a look at if this is even covered in our curriculum. So the item response summary can, really assist with curriculum reviews. And then a list report, so you can easily print out a report just to quickly glance and see all the students' ACT scores. And then an early intervention report. So this is an early intervention sample report. So you can see this particular student, the first student we see, Maggie, she has indicated that she would like to go to a 4-year college university. Her scores, however, are sending up some red flags. She has a composite score of a 15, pretty far away from the math benchmark. So then if you look to the right, you'll see, well, she hasn't taken any math courses or any English courses, and that could be why. So it just kind of gives you a snapshot of students, who you need to kind of keep an eye on at that very early time in their career. We also have an interest inventory that's part of the pre-ACT. This is completely optional. This is the first look, I guess, that parents and students can kind of say, hey, I'm interested in STEM, or I'm interested in becoming a teacher, whatever it is. So this will kind of give them an idea of, where they scored and how they fit in and what their data says about their strengths and weaknesses. So this is part of the pre-ACT, but it is completely optional. So all of those reports that I talked about, except for the paper, students will receive a paper score report. But we now have online reporting for ACT, so you'll be able to get access to the online reporting program. There's no charge or anything like that. It's available now. And all of those scores will just pop right into into our online reporting. And then, of course, you can download those into Naviance or whatever it is that you use, so you can capture all of that information. I'll take a second to look at ACT Prep. And, I just wanted to point out the prep, there's a whole host of different prep options, but for the challenge that I want to talk about, I'm going to focus kind of on the Kaplan Prep program, since that's what the students will receive for free with their fee waivers. So the challenge, so we do have an opportunity to make a difference for these students. And so, as I said, I'm providing all of this information to you, but how do you put it all together, right? So I created this challenge. I call it the 12-week challenge. And it's really helping to maximize all of the opportunities that I talked about with the ACT fee waiver program. So the 12-week challenge looks like this. So we take a look, and these dates are fluid. You can start or end whenever you want to, but typically you'll need to pick a date that students might take the ACT and count backwards 12 or 13 weeks. So if you wanted to start in September, we can take a look at September 12th, that first or second week of school. And all you have to do that week for this challenge is to order your fee waivers and order your pre-ACT test booklets. I will be, in charge, if you will, of the program. So I would be sending out reminders. Here's how to order. Here's the link, all that good stuff. So week 2, the following week, you'd like to probably get everybody together, have a planning meeting. Okay, so what are we going to do here? Will we create a prep program? When do you think we can get students to take the pre-ACT? I will say that, October 12th is typically PSAT day. So if not all of your students are taking the PSAT, or if that's a complete testing day for you, you can certainly consider offering the pre-ACT on October 12th. And then the next step is to actually administer the pre-ACT. So I'd say end of September, beginning of October. And again, you can offer it over a couple of days if you don't want to take 2 hours out of your instructional time. The next week 5, we get together with your students and we create an account in ACT. It's called My ACT. I'll show you where that is in a little bit, but when you get students to register for the My ACT account, and then you'll have them register for the ACT on December 10th using a fee waiver. And here is where you'll show them or help them enroll in the ACT Kaplan Prep program. Okay, so we've ordered, we've administered, we set up accounts, and now we get our results back. So the pre-ACT results usually come back in 10 to 14 days. So depending on when you offer the pre-ACT, we will meet, we can take a look at the data. We'll go through those educator reports and we'll kind of make some plans from there. Where do we go from there? We provide the reports to students. They all get a paper student report so they can see how they performed. And then weeks 8 through 12 are just prep, right? So they have their results, they know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they have the Kaplan program, they can start prepping for the actual ACT. I will also say that a lot of schools will have an SAT prep program. So, you can also create your own prep program if you don't think students are very self-motivated. Because with the Kaplan program, it is a program that students do on their own. So, they're going to have to be motivated to go ahead and complete that prep program. And then on the 10th of December is a national test day, and that is when we will have students take the ACT. Okay. After that, results come back. Again, as I said, we have 4 chances to take the ACT. So, we allow students to go in again, register for that spring test, use the Kaplan Prep program, and hopefully get those scores up and create a super score. Okay, so fee waivers, again, that's the first step that we're going to do. We're going to order our fee waivers. This is, I'll send out this link, but this is where online you order the fee waivers. It's also the same system that you will use to order the pre-ACT booklets. Now, I will say that there is a charge for the pre-ACT booklet, and that is $17 per student. Now, you can order as many as you think you need, and you will only be charged for the booklets or the score reports that you send back for testing. So if you have 100 students that want to take advantage of this program, you know, for $17 or $1,700 total, you get 4 chances to take the ACT, you get the pre-ACT, all of those reports, the Kaplan program, and me to kind of guide you through it, which is more valuable than the $17. Just kidding. But I will work with you because I love this program. I love to see it work, and I try. I only do a couple every year because it does require a lot of work on my part. So I will give you my full attention on this. So this is just a look at where we go and create the MyACT account. And I'll give you guys some homework if you'd like. Just go to myact.org. and you can practice creating your own account so that you can guide your students when it's time. So you're familiar with the MyACT. So much information in there as well. So, students can access information on colleges and what kind of scores they need to get into certain colleges, all kinds of great information that is included in the MyACT program. This is the Kaplan program that I told you about. There's actually a live component in it, which is awesome. So students can sign up and take a live class, so that they'll be able to interact with the teacher, ask questions. They can also use it on their own. They can go as far as they want on their own, or they can kind of follow a structured program. So test centers, I wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit. So currently in Baltimore, we have 3 test centers. You're probably familiar with this: Baltimore City College High School, Calvert Hall, and St. Francis Academy. That's where students will take the ACT. So you can become a test center if you'd like on your own. There's a couple of interesting things about becoming a test center. So your school can become a national test center, which means any student from any school anywhere in the country can come to your school and take the ACT. It's on a Saturday on our scheduled national test days. These are the things that you need to provide to be a testing center. And we do pay the testing center and the proctors for administering the ACT on a national test day if you allow students to test at your school. There's a request form that you will need to fill out, and I will get that to you if you're interested. There is also a hidden opportunity for testing that not a lot of people know about, so I'm letting you in on this really big secret. You can become a test center for just your school on a Saturday if you'd like. So it's only for your students. The only issue is that since it's not a national testing center, we don't pay proctors or test coordinators. So that's something that you would have to do on your own if you wanted to become a private test center. So you might want just to consider becoming a national test center and letting, any student in. So that's completely up to you. So I always hear that there aren't enough test centers available in the area. So this is an easy fix for that. So again, as I said, if you don't want to be a national test center, you want to offer it on a school day, that is called our ACT district testing program. As I said, there's one in the fall, 3 in the spring, and you can choose paper and pencil or online in the spring. And again, I will say that fee waivers are not allowed to be used for district testing. So you would have to buy vouchers for your students, and they're discounted. I don't have the discounted prices yet for next school year, but I will get that to you if it's of interest. So more prep. So obviously these are guides that you can buy on Amazon or any bookstore. In addition to that big old red book that we've had forever, the prep book, we now have individual subject guides. So you can just buy the math book or the reading book or however you'd like to do that. The first one you see there, the official beginner's guide for the ACT. This is great for newbies, and it actually includes an online diagnostic test that students can take, just kind of get a feel for the ACT. So that's valuable as well. We also have an ACT online prep program. It's called AOP, and this is not free as part of the fee waiver program. There is a fee for it. But if you're putting together a prep program for the ACT, this is certainly a really great option to use. Study plans, full-length tests, 3,000 different questions, all kinds of information. It can be available for a school or district purchase. There's a lot of ways to implement it. So you can give it to students, self-motivated students individually. You can use it as part of a test program. You can use it as a study plan. But it works nicely for this particular challenge because you can track to test day. So if you know you're going to be testing on December 10th, you can track to that date. So it will give you very specific things that you need to accomplish on a weekly or daily basis to get you ready for that December 10th test. So that is all I have on the program. So I'll open it up to any questions that you have at this point.
Thank you, MJ. That was very informative. I learned a couple of things I took notes on as well, so I appreciate that. If anyone has a question they would like to unmute, you can do that now, or if you would like to put it in the chat, you can do that also. Please feel free to join us and engage and come on camera. We're all family here. We're all working with the same students, trying to support them, making sure they get all the advantages that they are eligible for with that ACT waiver. So Ms. Green, Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Nelson, Mr. Jones, anybody have a question for MJ? Then all talk at the same time.
So I have a quick question. Oh, sure.
Sure. I saw Troy first, and then Joanne, and then Ms. Nelson.
I didn't necessarily have a question. I was just, I know she said it earlier, just looking for the contact info so I could bring at least one of these tests to our school. Because sometimes I do know that kids test a little better based upon how the subjects align, and the ACT clearly aligns with just one individual subject and then moving on to the next. So I feel like for our students at RFL, most definitely they would be able to benefit a lot better from the ACT. So I'm just looking for contact information so I can kind of set it up for my students.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yep, we sure will. We'll put that in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne?
Mine was kind of along the same lines as Troy. I kind of want the students to have the experience of the ACT, but is it a little faster paced than the SAT? I did hear that from students before.
Yeah, certain subjects. Yeah, the math would be the one. Yeah.
Is that the reason why they use the calculator the whole time, or?
Yeah, that's part of the reason. Yeah, but it's 60 questions in 60 minutes, so it's pretty fast paced.
Okay.
But the calculator helps, right?
And the overall test length again, you said was 2 hours?
No, the pre-ACT is 2 hours. The ACT is at 3 hours and 5 minutes, I believe. I'll get that out to you. I should know that after 6 years with ACT, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 hours and 5 minutes. Anybody else?
I see a hand. Is that Ms. Morris?
Ms. Morris?
Ms. Nelson, I'm gonna have you go next, and then Ms. Morris.
Okay, great. I guess my question was about the super score and how that's viewed from the college's standpoint. So is it packaged as a quote unquote super score? Is it packaged as as just their score report? Is the 25 they got in English, the 30 they got in math? How does that look different from a regular test scores?
Yeah, so when they're in the MyACT and they're sending their test scores, so what happens is this colleges will receive the super score, and they'll also receive their last full report. So they're going to get their last ACT, and they're going to see their scores on the last time they took the ACT, as well as their super score. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I had a quick question about the calculator usage. Is it an internal calculator to the computer, or will they have a calculator that we provide?
Yeah, it would be something that you or they provide. Unless you're taking the online version in the spring, then we do provide a calculator online.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that's why, I want to emphasize that the math is 25% of the composite score, because I know with my own child, math is always less is more. So to keep that in mind.
And we do have a question in the chat from Wendy. The question is there a designated person, like a coordinator at the school, that can order waivers, or can anybody order them?
Anybody at the school, it's usually the test coordinator. But if there's nobody currently, and that might be the case with some of your schools, I mean, you can, as long as you're, an educator and you have access to the system, then you can order fee waivers. It's in, and the address is in the presentation, the online app, the web address, I should say. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you don't have to have a test coordinator, but it's a good idea if you don't have a test coordinator, just to have one person kind of in charge of anything ACT related. And there's all kinds of, we have a program called success.act.org, and inside of that is everything you'll ever need to know. There are training videos on how to administer the ACT, how to apply for accommodations, how to order materials. Everything is in there. So I'll make sure that you have access to that as well. I'm going to add a slide that I should have added before I send it out, and that will be with all of these different addresses for you guys.
Okay, great. That sounds great. We have about roughly less than 10 minutes left. Please do, as you guys are on with these last few questions, please do go in, fill out that evaluation form. From there, I will send out the slide deck that Ms. Melindrucco is going to provide. So please go ahead now and start filling out those evaluations. We do have an additional question in the chat, and Ms. Brown, I don't know if you want to come off mute and read that, but I can read it for you. It says, how are community colleges able to work with local high schools to start their students with ACT? At times, we see that students are not fully prepared to enter college. Did you want to say more about that question? Did you want to come off mute?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I work with Imagine Me Ministries, but I also teach. I've been teaching at a community college for almost 10 years. And I do see that students are not fully prepared, especially in the area of writing. So some colleges have articulation agreements with high schools, and high schoolers at times, especially the ones that excel, they get to come and go to college and get credits. But what about the ones that don't? Is there something that, if you are affiliated with a community college, that you could probably suggest, that, because from what I'm hearing about ACT, it's going to be really useful to just prepare these students, because I see it a lot throughout the last few years, and it seems that something can be done about it.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that. For community colleges, you know, I only work with K-12, but there are certain tons and tons of resources available online. And that, you know, there are writing prompts and tips on how to write an essay. And, you know, there are just so many things on readiness and benchmark attainment. So let me take a note on that and see what we actually have a whole division of folks who work with community colleges. So they'd probably better align to answer that question. So let's see, is that in the chat? What, Ms. Jones, will you kind of record that one for me? Great.
I sure will, yes. And also, Ms. Brown, if you'd like to just send me that question directly as well.
Yeah.
I can make sure that I share your email, and I can put my email in the chat now as well. And I'm glad you actually brought that question up, because ACT also has Workkeys. So Ms. Melindrucco can tell you a bit more about that briefly, but I also put that link in the chat to ACT Workkeys, because we know that certain students are also career bound, not just college bound. So you can talk about that just a slight bit. It's 10:52, so I want to be mindful of our time, but.
Yeah, yes, we do. We have a program called Workkeys, and essentially it's for students who are headed right into the workplace and not going to college. And essentially it's a series of 3 assessments that students will take. And depending on how they score, they're given a credential, either silver, gold, or platinum. And those credentials, they're called the National Career Readiness Certificate. And a student can take that certificate and go to an employer and say, you know, I'm ready, and here's what, you know, what my score means in terms of me being ready for jumping into this particular job. So it's a nice program. I think we do have some Maryland schools and community colleges that are using it. And so I'd be happy to provide more information on that. Again, another division of the company, but if you'd like, we can certainly think about offering a Workkeys webinar, much like this one, maybe next school year, because I think that would be of a lot of interest to a lot of folks in the area.
Great, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Yep. I just want to say too, if you would, anyone that wants to take advantage of the 12-week challenge, if you could let us know that, and we could get you, you know, kind of started on that early to make sure that you got all your ducks in a row. And, you know, we've had some good success with other schools, districts using it in the past. It kind of got waylaid over the last 2 years because of COVID. So I'm kind of just picking it up again. So I would love to get a couple of you guys involved in this. I think it would be really beneficial for your students. So let me know if you're interested.
And MJ, looks like we have time for one last question in the chat. This is from a different Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown asks, MJ, do you have any data on how well students in Baltimore do on the ACT?
Yep.
We know that ACT and SAT are offered, and we have traditionally leaned more heavily on the SAT. Just curious about their success.
Yeah, I do. I can print out some statistics from the last couple of years, how many students took the ACT, how did they score, all that kind of stuff. So I'd be happy to provide that as well.
You'll send that, and I'm sorry, Ayanna, that you're going to send that too as part of the slide deck as well, those stats?
Who's asking? Is
I
that
could do that,
Joanne?
yep.
Oh, that's me, it's Joanne, sorry.
Oh, hi, Joanne. Yep, I can send it directly to you, Joanne, for sure.
And Joanne, there, I mean, it's available at the school level as well. So if you, you know, when you get access to online reporting, you can just log in and see all of your students in your school and all of their information, but it's probably a moot point since not a lot of schools yet are offering it. So, but eventually all of that information will pour into the online reporting, but I will send you the Baltimore statistics.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for that. The other piece that I really love that I think students can take advantage of, but the fact if they use that waiver, they can get that live online tutoring for free. That's typically, you know, not heard of. That's something that students and families typically have to pay for. So to be able to take advantage of that and not just have it be, you know, self-paced or on, you know, online, that they can get that live is really, really good. Any other questions for Ms. Melindrucco about pre-ACT, ACT, or any other benefits that students can get beyond just taking the test for free? And please do fill out that evaluation tool as we close out. Any further questions? Also love that if you like, you can just have your own students be a test center and just test your students. That speaks to what Troy said about that level of comfort about testing in your own school. That was also a nice tidbit of information that I had not known about before as well. So we are 3 minutes early, in fact. I'm going to allow you all to reclaim your time. And unless there are any further questions or comments, we want to thank you so much for joining us today and giving us these great nuggets of information for our students here locally in the district. I don't know if you can see the chat, but you are getting some thank yous and some kudos. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And again, if you want to put your email in the chat, MJ, as we close out, that would be awesome. And we want to thank you guys for joining us here at the CollegeBound Foundation for our Train the Trainer event. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one.